Committee meeting at 6 p.m. October 18th, 2021 in council chambers. We have 5 items on the agenda. I would like to add another item at number 1. This would be the event application for Tricks and Treats skateboard event. And do we need to approve that agenda? We don't usually do that in here.
No.
Okay.
You can just add it.
So if you want to go through this first item, one of you, either Mr. Sandy or Mr. Bedell.
I can go through it. Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. In front of you tonight is an item that we added to the agenda. It's an event parking lot closure application submitted by Community Action for the Tricks and Treats skateboard event. That's to be held on October 31st from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. in the City Hall parking lot. This event was hosted by Brainerd Community Action, includes skateboard lessons, skateboard contest, raffle, and costume contest. There will be some amplification of sound. We have power available for their use by the holiday Christmas tree light. Applicant has stated they would have porta potties on site for use. There will be 2 large banners facing the event and facing road. I'm assuming it's South 6th Street or Laurel Street, I guess, whatever one they prefer. Garbage cans will be provided, and the applicant is requesting the closure of the City Hall parking lot. This is a Sunday, so I don't see any issues with that. Being that Community Action is the host, they'll be providing the insurance for the event, which was the big question mark. This organization is not by the Secretary of State standards, it's not an organization yet. So Community Action took the lead on this and submitted the application on behalf of the applicant, and therefore they'll be submitting the insurance certificate for the event. So staff is recommending that we approve the attached application under the conditions that 1, we get a traffic control request 1 week prior to the event. All signs and banners are removed after event completion, and the applicant submit that insurance certificate prior to the event taking place.
Okay. Any discussion? You have a motion?
Move to approve?
And second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 2 is going to be the approval of the final pay estimate, improvement 1910. Sorry, I just lost that. I don't have it in front of me. But Paul, if you want to go ahead and explain this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was a 2020 improvement project that we finalized out just recently. We substantially completed the project in 2020. However, we were waiting for growth of the boulevards and grass areas along the project. Upon our inspection of the project, we found that to be in compliance with the contract documents. Therefore, we were asking to release the final payment to Knife River in the total amount of $1,157,089.82, and that's a little under $85,000 for this pay app. That's about 0.04% over the revised contract amount, which equates to about $416. So the project was very, very close on the as-bid cost compared to what the actual cost came in, and that was mainly due to a change order. We had one change order for $11,582, but coming in a little under $500 on a over $1 million project is quite good in our engineering realm. So staff recommends the approval of that final pay app to Knife River in the amount of $84,474.80.
All right.
Move to approve the final pay estimate as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3 is the letter of intent involving the letter of intent and Safe Routes to School grant application submission for Harrison Elementary Oak Street improvements. So go ahead with this one, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the city's been going through a couple-year process of updating their Safe Routes to School plan. With that, we also got funding to do what is called an engineering study for 3 specific schools in Brainerd. Those were Harrison Elementary, Lowell Elementary, and Riverside Elementary. With that engineering grant, it makes us very appealing to this solicitation, which is a MnDOT solicitation for $7.5 million in Safe Routes to School infrastructure grants. So this would be for 2022 or 2023 construction. So after this engineering study was completed, it identifies improvements around each school that could be done to improve pedestrian safety, pedestrian crossings, slowing traffic speeds, slowing or reducing lane widths to help calm traffic. The improvements on Oak Street that were identified can be seen on, what page is it? The proposed Harrison projects page, and I believe there's a drawing of this too attached. It includes the addition of a median on Oak Street between 15th and 16th. It includes bump outs on each intersection corner, so that would be 15th and 16th. You'll recall we just placed sidewalks on 15th and 16th this year, north and south, south of Oak Street. It includes narrowed pedestrian access and also would include funding for RFRB installation, which are the rapid flashing beacons, the push button pedestrian crossing beacons. Right now, there's just the flashing beacons on Oak Street that flash when the school zone is up. They're kind of out of date and they're no longer really installed anymore. You see a lot more agencies going to these RFRBs in lieu of those flashing lights. So what staff is asking for is the first step of this process to apply for the $500,000 grant, which is the max, would be to submit this letter of intent, which is attached in your packet tonight. Staff has taken the liberty to fill out the application to the best of their ability. And then from there, we would go through a process, I believe with Region 5, to talk over our letter of intent and make sure we're eligible to fill out the full application, which is due sometime after the first of the year. So right now, tonight, all we're looking for is approval to submit this LOI for a $500,000 Safe Routes to School grant. From there, at some point in the future, we'd be bringing back a resolution in which is a council resolution which supports the submission of a grant application for that amount. So if there's any questions about the project, I can answer those now. Otherwise, that's what staff is recommending here tonight.
I just have a quick question on the median. Two questions, actually. Is it just going to be a paved median, or is it going to be in a greenery? And does it actually extend past 15th Street and then the other way, too, the way it looks here?
Yeah, it extends. There's a painted area that extends past 15th and past 16th.
But in front of that, that's also going to be median right there also, where the cursor is right now?
Yes, yep. Anywhere you see that dark outline, yeah. We can do anything we want in the median. It could be a raised concrete median. It could be colored concrete. It could be green space with trees. It really depends on what Safe Routes eligible to. That type of improvement may not be Safe Routes to School eligible, but we could always plant green infrastructure in that median. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, that answers my question. My question was whether or not we are stuck with this type of design or if it's something that could move into a different direction once the grant is.
What type of different direction?
Well, the median would just be my concern was what does that look like?
No, I mean, this is just a concept design. We can design the median however we prefer. It could be green space, it could be hard surface, it could be.
So if they came back and said that the median itself is not eligible, we could remove that from it and not have a median?
Well, the median's part of the project. I mean, that would be what we're applying for and part where what the costs come from. So if we were asking for $500,000, that median is calculated as part of the cost. Is there an issue with the median itself?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I had a question.
Are medians safer?
Medians do provide refuge
Right.
for pedestrians, and it reduces crossing distance substantially. You're
Right.
crossing 14 feet of pavement at a time rather than 28 at once.
They also act as a buffer that makes a tighter drive lane feel, which would slow down vehicles.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Erickson?
I really like the pedestrian refuge, the bump outs, reducing the distance the pedestrians, the students have to cross in the lane of traffic. Kind of to get to the question, could we, if we did away with the median, could you still have those refuges? You could have the refuge and
There was another option actually provided in the Safe Routes to School plan. This was like the Cadillac version. There's versions that just have medians in front of each intersection. So that provides that refuge.
Not that I'm against that entire median, but, you know, given that that was the question, you could still have the benefit, of that safety benefit of that pedestrian refuge, perhaps, without the full long median.
The cost estimate that's provided in your packet has the full median included. So if we were gonna reduce the median size, we would ask for a lesser amount.
In my opinion, we keep it. I think unless somebody's really against it. I think it's safer. I think it'll look good. I just don't know the amount of detail we still have to talk about going
At
into
this
it.
point, we have not in any kind of design. So
Okay.
I mean, this is applying for the grant funding and
We're not completely like committed to the final result on this one. It's just, we're just getting started. Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, I'll just mention too, I like the way this is laid out. I support the project, but given my employment at Region 5, this letter of intent that Paul mentioned actually comes to me. So I'm gonna abstain, I guess, from voting on this one.
Okay.
Although again, I support the project, and I'm also on the scoring committee. So I'll say the same at council as well.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
So my comments about the median are less about for this project, but just as in general, I don't know how I feel about the medians in just general, because it does tend to create a slot car type of scenario, but it does narrow the lanes. So in front of the school, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but if it is to continue to extend further down the road, I mean, like with this process here, we're getting to the school, we're slowing people down at the school, then you're getting into your very narrow lanes, it should keep people at a slower pace. But if we extend that out further, I don't know how I would feel about it. So as long as it's just contained to this part here, then I think it serves its purpose.
Understood. Anybody want to come with a motion?
Move to approve?
And I will second. Any more discussion? Any more points you want to bring up? Okay. Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And let me pull up the agenda here. I believe our next item is the discussion on the downtown snow removal and special services district. Something that's been a hot item lately. I'm not sure if anybody's here that wants to speak for or against. Is anybody here for that in the audience? No? Okay. I know we did get a letter, at least one letter, recently. I don't know, Paul, go ahead and fill us in on whatever you want to talk about on this discussion.
yeah, so the letter you got from Ed Shaw Law was in relation to the assessment proceedings that happened later in the meeting tonight, so that really doesn't come into play at this point of the meeting. What I did here tonight for you guys is try to summarize the best I can everything we've talked about the last 3 meetings. It basically goes over what the original purpose and intent was, what staff did to recalculate the costs, you know, what the city's cost should be, or what the city's cost share should be. We kind of went over the things we heard as far as concerns from downtown business owners. We tried to cover all those, I guess, in more or less a rebuttal to some of those concerns. If you had the chance to read the memo, I guess I'd be looking, you know, tonight, you know, we have left this at the 3 basically routes we could take here the last couple meetings, and that is we do nothing, we leave the district the same. We modify the cost splits for basically streets and alleys. That's, I think, the big point of contention. Or, you know, you just completely dissolve the district as it stands. You know, I tried to, you know, go over, like I said, the concerns that were presented at multiple meetings, you know, about assessing every business, apartment dweller, visitor. It's just not possible. I mean, to that fact, I guess I'm just looking for direction from you all on where you would like to see this go, because I think we've kind of exhausted the issue from a staff perspective and have given you what I think is our best recommendation at this time. We've looked at the numbers. Our numbers support the assessment district. We've said since day one, if the downtown owners do not want this district, that it doesn't necessarily have to be provided by the city. But I think the direction from the city council in the past has been that if we're doing this district, the downtown owners should pay their fair portion of the cost, and the city should pick up the portion of the cost that they would incur if they were doing it themselves. And that's what I think we have here. We have a fair assessment methodology. We've heard from both sides of the spectrum of people that want it and people that don't want it. I think until we hear a loud outcry from the downtown businesses that it's a burden to them to pay these assessments, then I think, it would be up to the council to look at dissolving the district or even changing the cost share. Right now, it's 46% city for streets and alleys, and it's 54% property owners. And that's based on the calculations both from 1991 and today. It matches pretty closely to what we've had in the past and what is currently what we feel it would take us to do it today. So landscaping kind of falls into a different realm. We do assess for 100% of that cost. So that's, and we assess 100% for sidewalks, and the city pays for 100% of the parking lots out of the parking lot fund. So really, I guess I'd leave it up to discussion at this point.
So if you're gonna change anything about snow plowing, it's too late this year. We would have to change routing around for everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes an issue of trying to provide the service to the rest of the city too. There's a lot of, we have guys that go to specific areas right away in the morning, and this would eat up an hour of time. It's an hour of time that we would be spent doing something else. It's either that or we would back our time up to a 3 o'clock or 3 a.m. start. And that way, right now, we typically start at 4 a.m. after a snow event. That gets us out of the downtown district fast enough and get the snow windrowed to the center. I could foresee us starting at 3 to get at least the streets opened up in the 6-block downtown core, leaving the snow in the middle while we go and windrow the rest up around town, get all the streets opened, and then come back and pick it up afterwards, like we do the rest of the 32 blocks downtown.
I guess the way I see all of these items, the landscaping, the snow removal, we have some concerns about, from a couple downtown building owners that basically say we don't want to pay for this anymore. We don't think it's necessary. But I haven't heard anything about how do we replace this service? How do we still maintain the level of care that we're getting downtown and maintain the fact that people need to get in and out of there? I think we've heard it, but if we don't have the solution, we just have a problem. So I don't foresee us making any changes to it at this point, but.
If I would have heard an outcry from a lot of business owners in downtown that they were unhappy with this, I think I would be leaning towards changing it. But even in my shopping and talking to business owners, I did not run into that many that were opposed and thought it was a bad idea, both the upkeep in the summer and in the winter. I mean, I could see possibly looking at the cost splits if that's the biggest point of contention, because then you'd still have the services. It would just be how you're allocating who is paying for what. But as it stands, I'm kind of leaning towards leave it as it is, and then, maybe in the future we can look at the cost splits.
Mr. Erickson? Yep.
Well, I agree with really much of what both of you have said. If I was hearing from kind of the majority of these downtown property owners, I'd be open to looking at changing it. I would add that from what I've heard from them, I'm not hearing that they're upset with the percentage splits. I haven't heard that called into question. They're wanting to see the cost of those splits divided more broadly. And given that it's a property tax thing, that's obviously not possible. So I'm inclined to leaving it as well, particularly this late in the season. God forbid we get snow anytime soon, but I mean,
Could happen tomorrow.
foreseeable.
Could happen in 2 days.
I agree. I think option one, to leave it, and if we're hearing, as you said, an outcry from more or a majority of downtown property owners, then we would just need to hear that before we reconsider that.
Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, so to that point, this doesn't prevent property owners from coming forward during assessment hearings. And that's, I think, what Councilman Johnson's point was, is we have assessment hearings every year. And the opportunity for people to come forward and speak on record for or against assessments. That's what's happening tonight, and that's what you see in this letter right here. This was a good exercise from staff's level. The numbers needed to be looked at, and our research shows that the cost splits are fair at this point in time, but that might not be for the future. And if, it comes to the point where the downtown owners don't want that service anymore, they want to look at the cost splits again, it should fold into an assessment type of hearing. That's what that's for, is, let's talk about the assessment, let's talk about what the split is, and let's move on. But at this point, our research supports what we're currently doing.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Dave had one thing.
Yes, go ahead.
So Paul, walk me through what would happen if we removed this specifically for the sidewalks. So the downtown district is having the sidewalks cleaned as well. Probably the most important part of this, I think, in terms of safety aspect of it. So walk me through what happens if we were to dissolve this, and then these residents are then, or business owners are in charge of clearing off their own space. What's the process for once that happens?
So what currently happens today is, as you probably are all very aware, is that the downtown contractor removes all the snow off the sidewalks first downtown. They come and they windrow all that snow from the sidewalks and bring it to the center, load it, and haul it out. How we would treat downtown is just like any other block in the central business district. That is, we don't take care of sidewalks. We windrow to the center, and that snow that gets pushed off the sidewalks gets left at the curb line, because the property owners are coming in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, pushing that snow into a parking space. Then we run into parking issues where we might have to clear out downtown twice. So it's, you're clearing out downtown the first morning to windrow up the snow, and then all the property owners come and push their snow to the curb, and then we have to figure out a way, otherwise we leave it. And that's one of the biggest complaints we get downtown, is when our city staff does it, that snow hump is left at the curb and people are left to trudge over that snow hump at the curb line from the sidewalk snow. So that's the one biggest benefit we get, all the snow removed at once, is that snow hump is removed with one parking enforcement, and the snow is 100% removed. I could foresee us having to do it twice downtown, one the first morning and one the second morning, so that we can re-windrow up the snow that was pushed off onto the curb the second day, to make sure all the snow is cleared from downtown once the property owners remove the snow from their sidewalks. And so that's another little nuance that would have to come along with this.
And then one follow-up question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So then, this is probably directed more at David. Then we're looking at fines for people that are not clearing their sidewalk then.
Correct. So per the code, you'd have all property owners technically. They likely delegate to the business owners, but have 24 hours from the end of the snow event to clear the snow and ice. And then if they don't do so, then yes, we go down through an enforcement.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think we're in agreement. We're just going to leave it. We don't really need a motion in that case. So I think we can move on unless anybody has any final points on that one. Okay. All right, back to lights. Item 5 is the discussion on the streetlight policy. And yeah, go ahead, Paul Sandy, if you want to take us through this one.
Yeah, so a couple of meetings ago, we brought up the possibility of creating a streetlight policy so that we have some sort of standard to either place new streetlights or replace lights that used to exist in a more controlled manner. As it currently sits today, we basically take streetlight requests into the engineering department and we bring them forward to the city council. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid by having a policy. It sets forth, what the city council agrees of what would be allowed for streetlights, spacing, streetlight standards as far as design of the light, the look, the feel. So that way there's not really any question on, should we be placing a mid-block light somewhere? Where do the lights, if a new development comes in, where should the lights go? What is the spacing? So that's this policy that you see in front of you tonight is a first stab. It was drafted based on an ordinance that I presented a while back. It's pretty simplistic in its form. It basically covers new subdivisions and streets based on residential, arterial and collector, and industrial. And then it also covers existing subdivisions and when it would warrant placement of additional lights in residential areas. I don't know if you guys had the chance to read the policy. It does cover spacing requirements. What we're really here, or what staff would like some guidance on tonight, is included in the memo, which is the committee and subsequently the council interested in a change of how our streetlights look? Are there any changes to this policy in front of you tonight that you would like to make for a second draft coming back? We took some liberty and went forward and picked out some examples of lights that you could consider. There's millions of options. If you had the opportunity to look at the websites I sent you all, there's literally, the options are endless for street lighting. And that's where we kind of found it hard as staff to really pinpoint if you guys are interested in a new design type. We would like to kind of get an idea of what you're interested in, and then we would go back and research these new lights with BPU, determine what the cost, feasibility is, that kind of thing, so that we're making the right decision long-term with a change in design for lighting. I guess if there's any policy questions, we can run through it either paragraph by paragraph or.
So just, I'm at the residential, policy there.
Yep.
Right now, does the spacing, what do we have for spacing now? And obviously, right now, we're going every other light is on, but what's the spacing right now between lights? Is it roughly the same?
On residential streets? Yeah, it's usually at every intersection. I guess what we're trying to avoid is the placement of like lights at mid-block. In between like a 380-foot block, you have a light on each end to reduce the 190-foot light in the middle.
Okay.
What you see on like South 6th Street or Oak Street, and I did some research on this, where it looks like generally there's 3 lights per block, and that's one at the intersection, 1 mid-block, and that's where the spacing criteria kind of came into play. What we kind of see today is at 190 foot, which is about 3 lights per block. That's what you see on South 6, Oak, what you see on 210. It's generally the spacing that it currently exists. Right now in residential streets, most, if not all, the lights are on intersections, unless you get down into like South Brainerd, where there's mid-block lights that are right around 380 feet. But most of the light requests we get are the ones that are about mid-block, about 190, 200 feet away in front of someone's garage. They kind of want it on just for that safety perspective in front of their property.
I think it's a great policy. It gives you a tool to answer questions like this that come up all too often. I am probably more interested in this policy for the fact that we can change the streetlights. I'm not a big fan of the plastic gray streetlights that we have right now. I do like the old, what do we call those in Gregory Park? The
concrete poles.
The concrete, yeah, those I like. I don't like the lamps on top of them. If we can look into those, or if we can look into some type of black decorative one, you have some examples on here. But it all does come down to cost. We can't just be throwing money out the window to make pretty lights everywhere. So I think maybe the discussion comes down to finding one for residential and finding one for highways that would be more decorative but not overly costly. And I do like the other examples that you have on here too, with the lamps. So any of those would be better than what we have right now. So if you want to move forward with finding out pricing on stuff, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I kind of like the residential ones with a little bit of a hood on them to kind of keep the light directed down.
Yep, absolutely.
So out of the styles that are in your packet tonight, is there one that you guys like? The ones that were in Gregory are right there, Sean. Yep, right there, Sean. Go back. Nope.
The fuller.
Forward one more. There you go. No. Go back to the one with 4.
Dang IT guy with 1 and 2?
Go, Sean.
The one with 4 on it. The 4,
145 of the packet.
There you
There you go.
the one that were very similar to the ones used to be in Gregory is in the bottom left. Yep.
And it looks like the most simple one too, so when it comes down to cost, I would assume that one would probably be more affordable than some of the other ones. But we don't know.
And I think we need to look at efficacy too. How they throw the light and everything.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I just jotted down 3 things as I was going through the packet. Safety, obviously, we're all in agreement, it needs to be throwing off enough light, but cost was a second consideration. Obviously, we wanted to look as good as they can within a reasonable cost. Aesthetics, and then the light pollution, to your point, if there's some kind of a hood to kind of, obviously throw off enough light, but also contain that light pollution. I know we talk about that a lot with planning commission.
and the same goes for the highway lighting. This is more similar to what we have right now, which is good, as far as the light pollution. But when you look at the highway, mast arm that we have right now, they have decorative lighting similar to that as well.
Yeah, Sean, can you go, up the other direction? There you go. Keep going. Is there one that you
That-
guys liked the most out of, so this is in the city of Crosby. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a helmet type.
Right.
Really directs the light down. That's on the
I
trunk
do like
highway.
those.
The next one is the city of Little Falls, I believe. Those probably have a little more light pollution. Those are in their downtown along the county road.
Right.
Those are ones I found online. They're similar to Crosby, except they have the mast arm,
We have some similar to that on our roundabouts.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
And I like those too.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I like that one with the double kind of hoods coming off. I suspect that's probably the most expensive one. But I like the Crosby ones, and then if I was to rank them, this one, the Crosby one, and then the Little Falls one, I agree, the Little Falls one, I like the look of it, but it probably throws off more light pollution. And then back on page, not that you have to go here, Sean, but the one with the 4 examples of the lamps. The one in the bottom right, I just feel is a little too ornate.
That looks like a yard light.
Yeah, the one right above that, that bottom part is just seems like a lot of metal, so I don't love that one. I like them all, but
Yeah.
the one on the top left I like the most. It just has the kind of a good classic look. It still has that hood, and then the bottom left one, I like that as well. And if cost dictates we have to have that, I'd support it, but it's kind of like the only square one.
The top left would actually match more with the
That's my favorite of
the others that we have.
One of
So-
the things that, when we talk with BPU is, when they do street lighting, they do direct bury poles. If you look at what we have downtown on Laurel Street here, those are on concrete pedestals. Those increase the cost of lights dramatically. So our poles you see today are all direct bury except for the ones on Laurel Street. That's what they would prefer. And so what we'll be bringing back is a direct bury pole of some sort that can be buried in the ground without a concrete pedestal. When we're talking about like industrial areas, I feel like even if we can just have the same light we currently have on like South Sixth Street, but have like a black pole or a dark bronze, that would really improve just the aesthetic. So the same light as this in an industrial area, just a different color palette. I think, you don't have to get ornate in an industrial area. That's not what the purpose is, but this is all very good feedback, and that's what we'll take back. We'll throw together a couple of designs, and then we'll bring them back with some costs compared to what we pay today for a fiberglass pole that's gray with the current lighting.
Okay.
We'll plug it into a packet item and bring it back for you all to review and kind of make a decision on, and get some feedback from BPU too, because this affects them and their operations quite a bit, so.
Okay. I think we can move on from that one. I don't know if you're looking for a motion on that one today.
No, I think I got good enough direction on that. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Chair.
So we move on to I believe this is our final item. The discussion of sober homes. This is something that came up in last week's council meeting. It looks like a lot of people are here to speak on this. I'm not sure if you guys are all speaking for or some speaking against, but what we will probably do, we have plenty of time, but I'd say try to keep it you know, down to a few minutes if you can, but if you need more, that's fine. But anybody that speaking for sober homes, I'd like to hear from you guys first because we didn't get to hear much in that direction last week. So just go ahead and state your name and address.
Microphone on.
So thank you, Chair. And I would say most of everyone here is with our group.
Okay.
So I don't think any of the neighborhood that spoke at the last meeting is here. In fact, I wanted to start by introducing myself, Sheila Haverkamp, and I am one of the owners of the Burlington Recovery Homes, who owns and operates sober homes here in the central Minnesota region with several in the city of Brainerd. And with me, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce my husband, Gene Haverkamp, my daughter, Megan Adams, her husband, Nate Adams, my son, Joe Wozni, and us five are what I call the team members, the Burlington Recovery Home team members. Some of us have other day jobs. Some of us work full-time, depending on you know, the demands and the needs, what we will do in the future, but that's to be determined, right? And then we have a couple of residents that reside in the house with us here this evening, as well as Mr. Robert Tauges, who is a probation officer, and he will speak in a minute if he so desires. But I asked him to come tonight because he had been at one of the planning commission meetings. So I'd also like to say, because I had, you know, I'm responding, I guess, in large part to the article that was in the paper. I did not realize that agenda item was before you, and there was going to be conversation, or I would have tried to be here, obviously, with our team to discuss it at that point in time. But I would like to say the residents who are here, as well as those that are not, are also citizens of Brainerd, because they did speak to you know, the members of the Tyrell Hill as being citizens of Brainerd, and the residents of our sober homes are also citizens of Brainerd. I wear black tonight. I love Johnny Cash, right? And A Man in Black. And I specifically love the phrase for the sick and lonely. And oftentimes, you know, the ones who are struggling with active addiction, you know, it's a disease, and they're oftentimes in their own depths of loneliness. And to me, wearing black, we're standing with the ones who struggle in the addiction and want recovery and acceptance and a chance to live their life, right? And addiction is super close to my heart. I have several family members who battled the disease and some who have lost their lives to the disease. And it is as a result of that family addiction over the many, many years that has resulted in the Burlington Recovery Homes becoming a large part of our family's life, my family and those that are with me here this evening. We desire to create opportunities for addicts, and we want to stand with them and have a passion in supporting them in their journey in recovery. We just closed on our most recent facility a couple of weeks ago, so we will have 5 homes now and 3 units. We're calling them units. And the next few months, they'll all be online, and when they're all online, we will serve approximately 70 people. And I wanted to share a few facts tonight, as well as make a few statements, specifically around the untruths that are surrounding our Tyrell Hills neighborhood homes. So the fact is, on average, our homes have 2 to 5 vehicles at any point in time. So even though there might be a significant number of residents residing in the home, not all of them are driving vehicles by any sense of the imagination. So on average, we have anywhere from 2 to 5 vehicles per home. And our Tyrell Hills neighborhood, we have several more parking spots than we do have vehicles. And I included, I put together a few handouts here. Nate, do you want a handout? One to everyone? Or Joe? Give all of the commissioners a handout. But I include a map on page 3 that shows our addresses of 460 Tyrell Drive and 470 Tyrell Drive, and how we have both front yard parking and backyard parking. So our residents are able to access off of Tyrell Drive as well as Northwest Second Street. And so, you know, parking on the road, on street, is not only used by our residents and guests periodically. I would say, on average, we are using our own driveways and our own yard spaces for the guys who live there. But several others in the neighborhood are using the street for parking. And so over the last couple of weeks, what I did was when I drive into the parking or into the Tyrell Hills neighborhood, I would just snap some pictures. So you can see 25 plus vehicles. And these, we tried to scan out any of them that were repetitive. But there are several residents using the streets for parking, not just us by any means. And like I said, most of our residents will park off-street. Sometimes a guest will park on street, or if they come in late and they don't want to encounter the bear, they might park on street. So I wanted to show you that. Another fact is, you know, there was conversation about noise and motorcycles. We do have two residents who do have a motorcycle in the Tyrell Hills neighborhood. You will see on page 1, I highlighted in yellow, a picture of a resident of the Tyrell Hills that is not us, that also has a motorcycle. And I'm also told that a neighbor in the Tyrell Hills neighborhood gets a Harley Davidson visitor regularly. So, you know, we are by no means the only people using motorcycles in that neighborhood. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. You also heard conversations that property values will decrease as a result of sober homes. And so I pulled information for you on page 4 that shows the property values of the Tyrell Hills neighborhood. And you can see since we purchased our first home in 2019 to the valuation that exists today, on average, it has been 4.64% increase in market values in the Tyrell Hills neighborhood, or that is per year over the last 3 years, or in total, nearly 14% increase in value in the Tyrell Hills neighborhood. And you can see off on the right-hand side, one of the homes we bought, we ended up paying a significant amount over and above assessed valuation, as well as our second house. Both of our homes, we paid significantly more than assessed valuation. And I did take time and I contacted our land services department in Crow Wing, because in my work of economic development, I have known for some time that, you know, if properties are being bought over and above market valuation, there can be adjustments made. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Tyrell Hills neighborhood at some point in time sees a significant adjustment in market values going up as a result of increase in paying price or sales price compared to assessed valuation. Okay. I also want to share a fact, because it was quoted in the paper that all residents signed the petition. Absolutely not true. The petition that was received by the city of Brainerd was signed by 16 different addresses of a total of 26 addresses that reside in the Tyrell Hills neighborhood. So about 61.5% of the residents of Tyrell Hills signed the petition. Not all residents signed the petition. And then I'd like to share a little bit about the people we serve, because they seem to have this concern that they're not safe, that they're noisy, and other accusations that in my mind are not justified or based on truth. We have served people in our homes with an 8th grade education all the way up to a doctorate degree. I can promise you that addiction does not discriminate. We have served people who are 18 years old all the way up to 72 years old. Some people have no criminal records, and others, of course, do. When they do have a criminal record, the law enforcement departments, probation officers, and others tend to like us, and I'll let the probation officer speak. But we are an extra set of eyes to help, guide these individuals and making a different choice and path for their lives. So sober homes are meant for people who want to change their life. It's not for people who want to be in active addiction. Our mission is to create a supportive, safe living environment for people in recovery. The homes are definitely designed to help people achieve that goal and find a new way to live. They don't want to go back to their old ways. And what I'd like to share in conclusion is that, the past 4 to 5 month process has caused me to reflect a lot and to start to understand how people of various race and economic status feel about being discriminated against. Because it has felt like there's been a stigma attached to people who are in recovery, who want to change their life. And it doesn't feel like all the statements that have been made are based on truth. And I think it's fair to share that addiction is a real disease. And people with this disease are definitely protected under federal law, and I'm starting to understand why after having to go through this process over the past 4 to 5 months. With that, I'm available for questions, additional conversations, but I was keeping it short,
Yeah,
Chairman
I
O'Day.
appreciate that. It
And
was-
I'll let anybody else speak who desires to do so.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that wants to come up and talk? She pretty much, yep, go ahead.
I'm Bob Togis. I'm from the Crow Wing County Parole Office, and I'm really not going to get into the parking or the noise pollution. I do go stop by there regularly. They seems to blend into the neighborhoods, but there's a definite need for these services. You can throw good money after bad and say, well, we got a place for them. There's places that I will not access in Crow Wing County because residents come back that we put in there and they say, I can't go there, there's too much use in there. I know when they go to Sheila's place, if there's use, I will be informed of it. I go there, I check on them regularly. I'll be one of the people that park on the street. I didn't know I was not supposed to, but, so it's bang for your buck. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck. We supervise them. We're very diligent about what we do. If I have questions, I call Sheila. If she has an issue, she calls us. Communication's open. If you don't have places for people to go, you don't have sober houses. You have meth houses. And we have a meth house in our neighborhood. People need to have an opportunity to be in a controlled atmosphere so they can become healthy. Addiction's a very, very difficult disease to deal with. And if we don't deal with it and we're not proactive in finding resources for people, they'll be on the streets and they'll be downtown Brainerd. We have to find a place for them. We don't have a designated homeless shelter that I'm aware of in Crow Wing County, nor do I want one. I like the fact that they can go to the county, they can get help, they can be in a situation where they can succeed. Because if we look at it and we don't have this resource, how many people did you say were out of Crow Wing County that are in your houses?
That or what?
That are not Crow Wing County residents that are in your houses?
It's so hard for me to calculate.
It's minimal,
Bobby,
you
yes.
know, so we're not grabbing St. Cloud's residents and bringing them into these I mean, if that happened, that would mean more work for us, that would mean less desirable people coming into our community, and I don't see that. I have several people that come from Crow Wing County, go to homeless shelters in St. Cloud area, but we're not bringing in people that, I wouldn't say are not entitled, but people that are not from our location. If they're not from Crow Wing County, we're not seeking out people to say, hey, come on up here, we need to fill a bed in this program.
Right.
Because that happens regularly. We do get people in programs around the area that come here with addictions, and they seek help from there, and a lot of times they stay. I like to deal with, let's take care of ourselves first. Let's take care of Crow Wing County first before we reach out. And right now, our hands are full, and our numbers are full in the probation department. We don't need to go out and seek other people, and that's one of the true benefits that we have with that program. Again, I have nothing but good to say. If I have a very violent offender that's coming out of prison, I'm not gonna call her up and say, hey, can we put her in there? You know, I have one that she called the other day. I said, watch him. You know, he's on the higher end, but he's probably 40% out of 100%. You know, so we're not putting the worst of the worst in these programs. We're not endangering these communities that they're living in. Nobody's 100% guaranteed that somebody won't relapse, that won't reoffend. But it's a place that I can go regularly and check. Doors are always open for me to go in there and check. And if there is an issue in the facility, I get a telephone call and we work it out. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't think there's really been a lot of negative attitude or words towards your organization at all. And I think everybody has been pretty clear that they agree that this is something that we need. I think the only argument that they have is it's taking a single family home and turning it into a business. There's some understanding to be had on both sides, I think, there. But our hands are tied. I don't really see us being able to just, change a whole lot of what you guys are doing. It's a positive thing. And we want to keep that here. I think on your end, you can see that, okay, when you put two sober homes right next to each other or in a small neighborhood, you're going to get some pushback. And that's a lesson learned. But it is what it is at this point. You can move forward with it. It sounds like you're buying more homes. Do you have as far as your business plan goes, are you planning to have dozens of these, or is that not?
They come with a lot of energy.
Okay.
No.
We're really interested in managing the homes within our within a small group that have the passion that we do, because we're very involved every day. We're almost with the guys. How are you doing? What's going on? Let's have coffee. Do you need a ride? Let's get you to the doctor. Let's make sure your prescriptions are filled so you can stay stable. Let's get you a job. Whatever it is that they need to continue moving their life forward, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes one-on-one, getting to know them and spend time with them. And so we've tried to hire a house manager and it didn't work. No, okay. So we're interested in managing the house ourselves. Will that change someday? I don't know. But I would also tell you is that we're really picky where the house is, because the house has to be close to amenities. We're never going to go way out into a very quiet neighborhood because they can't get to the services. They need groceries, they need doctor appointments, they need to get to their probation office, they need to get to outpatient treatment, they need a job. So, to put the home 10 miles out of town is never going to happen. The Tyrell Hills was a wonderful neighborhood because of its distance to all those amenities. Our north side Brainerd home is a wonderful location. Our most recent one is off of Tamarack. So it's off of South 6th, right over by the essay, really close to the amenities. We're real concerned that we're in very nice neighborhoods because we don't want a meth house nearby. We want to feel confident that we are in a neighborhood where people are succeeding and doing well, because we want these men to have and women. We're going to start piloting some efforts with these units about couples, women, families, children. Oftentimes the men want to be reunited with their family, and so we are finding a need that we somehow serve them to find a way back, right? Mm-hmm. So, parking is a huge, when we look to buy, we make sure the house has adequate parking. When you go through the Tyrell Hills neighborhood, I was trying to count the other day, if I'm not mistaken, there's 4 or 5 homes in that neighborhood that has a single car garage with one little path to the garage, right? We would never buy that because we have to have at least 5+ vehicles that we want to be able to have people stop by. We want to be able to accommodate the men. We want them to be able to get out and go to work without having to move cars around all day, right? So every one of our houses has significant off-street parking, and it is one of our criteria that we look for when we're looking. And we also will only have a very nice home. The home I would be willing to live in the house, or I won't have it. That's our criteria. Some of these men share that they've never lived in such a nice home in their whole life. You know, so we're trying to set a really high
Yeah.
bar and a standard. We want these men to realize that there's a better life than what you've been
Yeah.
living.
Well, you definitely have a stigma to overcome because
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of sober homes out there that aren't really fulfilling that promise, and it's good to know that you guys aren't one of those organizations.
No.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
I just have one comment because parking continually keeps coming up. The city of Brainerd, as far as I'm concerned, is very well invested in on-street parking. And the idea that people parking on the street is not something that we want, I find ridiculous because we design our streets so that people can park on the street. Some people seem to think that that's an inconvenience. I don't know where that comes from. Personally, at my house, we have 2 vehicles that are constantly parked on the street because we do not have place for them within our yard. We have room for 2 cars, one in the garage, one in the driveway potentially. 2 of the vehicles have to be on the street. Our streets are designed that way. Our streets are meant to be used that way. So the idea that we would somehow be against you having vehicles parked on the street is ridiculous to me. And I hope that you know that the last thing I want you to do is purchase a home and then start tearing things down to make off-street parking, because that I will not support.
The mayor hates parking lots.
The mayor will be on the record as saying I am anti-parking lot.
And one-way street.
Doesn't like one-way streets either. Does anybody else have any comments, questions on the committee?
Yeah, I'll just add to it, piggybacking on a couple things that a few of you said. Our hands really are tied, as far as the Federal Fair Housing Act, as far as regulating. And as you said, that can be a good and a bad thing. And so, I think this just creates an opportunity for us as neighbors, as a community, to work together. And I think you're doing that. And so, I think it's an opportunity for the neighborhood, both residents, as owners, and as tenants as well. And no matter what side of the issue, hopefully that we can see this community, this neighborhood come together and work out solutions. So thank you for what you're doing, and keep being good neighbors.
That's what it comes down to, being good neighbors, yeah.
I think that my team, our team, would want me to share this, that, we heard the neighbors. And the last 2 houses that came on the market, we didn't even look. We didn't even call. So we went outside the area to look. And, so we try to be respectful. We try to be friendly. The guys try to help the neighbors, be kind and good. So we will always try our best.
It might be one of these issues where it's a problem for a little while and then everybody kind of grows into it, but that's my hope.
I hope so too.
Everybody needs to be heard
Yes.
during this, and just continue to be good neighbors, and hopefully this all works out.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quickly, I'm hoping that there's not 2 sides to this. I'm hoping, I like it when people bring their concerns to us and make them known. And I think sometimes it's a reaction to the unknown. And I think your presence here is a testament to the fact that you're trying to be good neighbors. And, hopefully, everything that I was listening to, it's, well, motorcycles aren't illegal. Parking your car on the street's not illegal. And again, the fact that you don't need to be here because our hands are, in effect, tied, and you're here to give information to kind of, assure people that this is not something that's going to adversely affect them. I think that, right. I think that goes a long way. At least I see it going a long way. So,
Could I add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say too, and as a city, I think we really put this matter through a fine-tooth comb as well. I know, David, you spent a lot of time looking at this, the attorney, and initially went back to Planning Commission, and then to council, and now here's back at this committee, back at council. So, we really put a lot of time, effort, looked at examples from other cities, other court precedences and things like that. So we've really looked through this and given it, a magnifying glass and a fine-tooth comb. So here we are, and I think you're right. That's what it does come down to, is the kind of we the people, the neighbors.
Mr. Chansky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, even though our recommendation, obviously in the packet, is not to take any further action on this issue, as we don't believe that there are any significant issues at this time that need to be addressed. I think one thing it is, I do want to make sure we point out, just make it clear that sober homes are not impossible to regulate. They're just extremely difficult to regulate. The court does use a very high level of scrutiny when considering regulations. Why is the regulation necessary? Where did it come from? What brought that regulation up? And so if the council wanted to go down that path to look at regulations, you could. It would likely require a study that would cost thousands of dollars to do. But it is not impossible. However, again, at this time, the reason we're not recommending it is because, again, while there are concerns we have heard, there's nothing that I think for myself, Engineer Sandy, Chief Bestel have looked at, that there's no significant issues at this time that need to be addressed.
Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, so after last meeting, we did go out and visit Tyrol Drive in some extent. Chief Bestel reported back that they did some speed radaring. We looked at on-street parking. The report is in your packet, but really for a car to go over 30 miles per hour on Tyrol Drive, it's just about impossible. We found the fastest car over a week of radar was 17 miles an hour. At most, there was 5 cars parked on Tyrol Drive during that time. And so really no substantial safety issues from both mine and the police chief's professional opinion. And so at this time, we're not recommending anything, just like David said. We researched the issue quite thoroughly and find that there's not any real safety concerns.
Right. I will too add, we did receive letters, multiple letters, at least 2, from some of those neighbors in support of you guys. So it wasn't everybody speaking out against you. There's people that like you there too. So it's just, yeah.
be good neighbors.
Right,
Kind of
Yeah.
like the people in that neighborhood.
right.
Just make sure to have those cars off the street when it's a snow emergency.
Just, yeah, that's it. All right. Anybody else want to speak on this? No? Okay. Okay, well, that was our final item. Thank you for bringing everything. Thank you for telling us your side of the story. Appreciated. And we will move forward.
And just know where, if you ever have an issue, call us too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do our best.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
talked David and I can't tell you what a great team you have in your building department and your